Hi, I'm Laura Ann Minkoff-Zern. I'm a professor of food studies at Syracuse University. And actually, Abby just commented a little bit on what I wanted to ask about, and it was in Jim's framing that food security is really an issue, or I see it and teach it as an issue of labor and wages. Right, that some of the largest percentage of food aid recipients in our country are also people that even work in the food system, ironically. And so I was just curious, and I know no one organization can deal with everything, but I was curious from the perspective of organizations working directly on food insecurity and hunger, how are you guys addressing the issue of labor and wages, especially in the U.S., if you have the capacity, and if you think that there's a direction where people are understanding those connections?
So I think most of the groups here and a lot of anti-hunger groups around the country, not all by any means, have been supporting and working to raise the minimum wage, to improve the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit, unemployment insurance, and working with groups on those issues. We haven't been particularly working on issues of food chain workers, but we've been working very aggressively on issues of public benefits generally for lower paid workers.
Shannon, can I? Oh, I'm sorry, David. Go ahead. I'll go after you.
Well, we do work on a broad array of poverty issues and labor issues, because that's really the big problem is that wages haven't been going up for low-wage workers for a long time, and anybody, a better job is much more important to people than getting on SNAP. So we have to take that on. I think in addition to the things that Jim mentioned, I'm hoping that President Trump does work with the Democrats on the infrastructure idea. And I think if that happens, it would open up opportunities for groups like ours to push to get infrastructure in struggling communities, high poverty communities. President Trump promised that as a candidate, that he would work for the revival of inner cities for struggling communities. So I just think I don't see it happening this year, but it just seems to me if he pivots, if he decides he needs to work with the Democrats to get something done, that could open up an infrastructure investment program that would meet the infrastructure needs of struggling communities and also potentially create jobs in those communities. So that's something I think we ought to work on in the medium term. And then the other thing is that the jobs issue is partly it's a macroeconomic issue. So it seems to me that, the fiscal policy that Congress has pursued over the last 6 years of constraint, don't spend, and then over-reliance on the Fed to try to keep the thing afloat, that's terrible macroeconomic. So I just think that we've got to get to the point where people like us are intelligent about macroeconomic policy and are pushing for full employment. There's a lot of pressure on the Fed to keep inflation down, but they're also supposed to keep us at full employment, and we got to push for that. And on the other side, on trade policy, I think trade can be a win-win. It can generate growth, but for it to be a win-win, you also then need to use those resources to really invest in low-income people, good education, good health care, good nutrition. So if we could get that, at some point, get that vision of trade as an engine of growth with justice, that would be another way to deal with the jobs issue. So we somehow have to jump from programs to macroeconomic policy, including trade.
And I'll just add real quickly that for the population that Meals on Wheels serves, The typical recipient is 75 years of age, living alone on a fixed income.
Right.
They've passed their career